Hi, this is Daniel Olurin, founder and writer of Stories of Faith and Grace, and welcome to our podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this encourages you deep into your faith and reminds you that God is always present in your story. Enjoy the episode. Sometimes, nothing seems to make sense in our lives. We go through pain, loss, setbacks, and seasons of waiting. We pray, we may even fast, yet nothing seems to change. And in those moments, it's easy to wonder if God is using our circumstances to test us or if He has forgotten about us. I've been through seasons like that, times when the weight of uncertainty felt unbearable. I questioned why God allowed me to go through it. But over time, I have learned something life-changing. I may not always understand, but I can trust God to lead me through. I have also learned to bring my fears and frustrations into His presence, to be vulnerable with Him, and to lean on Him even when nothing makes sense. And surprisingly, I go through these seasons differently now, not because they are easy, but because I have learned to trust God with my emotions and my heart. And as I continue to grow, I want to share my journey with you. So, over the next 4 weeks, we will be discussing the story of Ruth, one of my favorite books in the Bible. Some people view it as a love story, but I see it as a tale of faithfulness, redemption, and trusting God through uncertainty. Each part of this series will walk through different seasons of Ruth's life. Seasons that might not make sense on their own, but when you step back, you see how God was weaving something beautiful all along. So let's start with chapter 1. The story begins in a time of crisis. There was a famine in Bethlehem, and a man named Elimelech, along with his wife Naomi and their 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, had to make a tough decision. They left their homeland and moved to Moab for food and a better life. But life didn't go as planned. First, Naomi's husband Elimelech died. Imagine the heartbreak. She still had her sons though, and in time, they married Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. Maybe Naomi could have thought to herself, okay, things will get better. But after 10 years, both her sons died too. Now, Naomi was left with nothing. No husband, no sons, just grief, emptiness, and 2 daughters-in-law in a foreign land. Have you ever felt like life just keeps handing you blow after blow? Like every time you try to move forward, something pulls you back? That's where Naomi was. For Naomi, this loss was unbearable. She had left Bethlehem with a family, full of hope for a better future. Now she had nothing. But then, a glimmer of hope. She heard that God had provided for His people in Bethlehem. Food had returned to her homeland. With nothing in Moab, Naomi decided to go back home. Naomi started her journey back to Bethlehem, and Orpah and Ruth followed. But along the way, she had a change of heart. Go back, she told them. May the Lord show kindness to you as you have shown to me and my sons. May you find rest in the home of another husband. She kissed them goodbye and they wept. At first, both women insisted on staying with her, but Naomi was firm. I have nothing to offer you. No more sons, no future. It is more bitter for me than for you because the Lord's hand has turned against me. Orpah wept again, and after much hesitation, kissed Naomi goodbye and returned home. But Ruth clung to Naomi. When Naomi urged her again to leave, Ruth made one of the most powerful declarations of faith in the Bible. Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. Ruth wasn't just committing to Naomi, she was committing to God. She was walking into the unknown, trusting in a God that she barely knew. Sometimes faith looks like leaving everything familiar behind and stepping into uncertainty with nothing but trust. So Naomi and Ruth arrived in Bethlehem. Imagine the whispers as they walked into town. Is this Naomi? She looks so different. She left full and has returned empty. Naomi felt it too. Don't call me Naomi, she said. Call me Mara because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. She felt abandoned, forgotten, crushed under the weight of her loss. What she didn't know was that God was already planning her restoration. She thought she had returned empty, but she didn't see the gift God had placed beside her. Ruth, the woman who would be a key part of her redemption story. Now, what does this mean for us? Naomi was in a season of deep pain, but God was already at work. Ruth was in a season of uncertainty, but she stepped forward in faith. Can you relate? Have you ever been in a season where life felt unfair, where prayers seemed unanswered and God felt silent, where you didn't know what was coming next? Waiting is hard. Trusting God when we can't see the outcome is hard. But as we will see in Ruth's story, God was already moving even when they couldn't see it. Ruth's decision to stay with Naomi was an act of faith. She didn't know what the future held, but she chose to trust in a God she barely knew. What about you? Have you ever faced a season of loss or uncertainty? Have you responded when life didn't make sense? Would you choose to trust God even without guarantees of what's ahead? Let's take time to reflect on these questions. Coming up next, Ruth and Naomi have returned to Bethlehem, but their story isn't over. In part 2, Ruth steps into God's bigger plan, one she never saw coming. So, stay tuned. In the meantime, I invite you to read Ruth chapter 1 and reflect on the waiting seasons in your own life. If you would like, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to the SFG Podcast. I hope this episode blessed you. If it did, share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more hearts find these messages. Let's stay connected. Follow me on Instagram or visit Stories of Faith and Grace for more. See you in the next episode. Remember, God is in your story and present in every detail.